Last week and the week prior, we talked about Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton ghosting Congress. They just didn't show up. They'd gotten a subpoena and they decided that they'd had enough. They didn't want to go to Congress and they did not show, which of course they're not allowed to do. It's a crime to ignore a subpoena issued by the United States Congress. And the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, he'd been the one who'd issued the subpoena. He took action. He didn't just say, oh, well, Bill and Hillary Clinton, they're the Clintons. They get away with everything. We're going to just let this one pass. He did what he's supposed to do in his role as Oversight Committee chair. He held them. He had the committee vote, at least, to hold them in contempt of Congress. They voted. The Oversight Committee voted positively on articles to hold Bill and Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress. And in fact, the entire Congress was set to vote on whether or not to hold Bill and Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusing the subpoena in 2 days' time. This was about to happen, to come before the full floor of the House of Representatives, when suddenly Bill and Hillary Clinton capitulated. Suddenly, Bill and Hillary Clinton said, actually, we will testify. We will give you an in-person deposition. We will do it. I want to read to you a little bit of this article from the New York Times, because it's not only interesting to see what happens when you actually demand justice. Justice happens when you stand strong, when you say, these are the rules and we're not going to allow you to break them simply because you're powerful. Justice happens. Comer is the man, let me tell you, and I don't say that very often about a politician. The way that he has handled Bill and Hillary Clinton and this entire investigation into Jeffrey Epstein is textbook how it should be done. But listen to how he out-negotiated the Clintons. This is from the New York Times. Bill and Hillary Clinton, the New York Times writes, agreed on Monday, that's yesterday, to testify in the House Oversight Committee's investigation into the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, capitulating to the demands of its Republican chairman days before the House was expected to vote to hold them in criminal contempt of Congress. For months, the New York Times writes, the Clintons had been adamant that they would not comply with subpoenas from Representative James R. Comer of Kentucky, the panel's Republican chairman, that they have described as invalid and legally unenforceable. They accused Mr. Comer of being part of a plot to target them as President Trump's political adversaries and promised to fight him on the issue for as long as it took. But after some Democrats on the panel joined Republicans in a vote to recommend charging them with criminal contempt, an extraordinary first step in referring them to the Justice Department for prosecution, the Clintons ultimately waved the white flag and agreed to fully comply with Mr. Comer's demands. Now, wait a second. This is not just a single demand. Comer did not just say, we subpoenaed you, you have to show up. You didn't show up, we're going to hold you in contempt of Congress. The Clintons attempted to orchestrate the entirety of what the deposition would look like, what it could entail. They tried to set the rules for this deposition, and listen to how Comer handled them. In an email, the New York Times writes, sent to Mr. Comer on Monday evening, attorneys for the Clintons said their clients would, quote, appear for depositions on mutually agreeable dates and asked that the House not move forward with a contempt vote, which had been slated for Wednesday. They negotiated in good faith. You did not, spokesman for the Clintons said in a statement. They told under oath what they know, but you did not care. But the former president and former secretary of state will be there. Love that sentence. The New York Times continues, for Mr. Clinton to testify in the Epstein investigation would be nearly unprecedented. No former president has appeared before Congress since 1983, when President Gerald R. Ford did so to discuss the celebration of the 1987 bicentennial of the enactment of the Constitution. When Mr. Trump was subpoenaed in 2022 by the Select Committee investigating the January 6th, 2021 assault on the Capitol, after he had left office, he sued the panel to try to block it. The panel ultimately withdrew the subpoena. The Clintons' move capped a months-long battle between them and Mr. Comer. It was a victory for the Republican chairman's effort to shift the focus of his panel's Epstein investigation away from Mr. Trump's ties to Mr. Epstein and his administration's handling of the matter, and on to prominent Democrats who once associated with the disgraced financier and his longtime companion, Ghislaine Maxwell. Let's just pause there for 1 second. The New York Times, even in the midst of a good article, they always got a New York Times. That's how you want to characterize Epstein? Just a disgraced financier and his longtime companion, Ghislaine Maxwell? Okay. In a letter on Saturday, the New York Times continues to Mr. Comer, which was obtained by the New York Times, Mr. Clinton's lawyers tried one more time to put some guardrails on potential interviews with the Clintons. They said that Mr. Clinton would agree to sit for a 4-hour transcribed interview with the entire committee, something he had previously described as an inappropriate and unprecedented request to make of a former president. The lawyers asked that Mrs. Clinton, who has said she never met or spoke to Mr. Epstein, be allowed to make a sworn declaration instead of testifying. But they said that she, too, would submit to an in-person interview if the committee insisted on it, quote, with appropriate adjustments for the paucity of information she has to offer in this matter, according to the letter. But Mr. Comer flatly rejected the offer, calling it unreasonable and arguing that 4 hours of testimony from Mr. Clinton was inadequate, given that he was a loquacious individual who might seek to run out the clock. Your client's desire for special treatment is both frustrating and an affront to the American people's desire for transparency, Mr. Comer wrote in a letter to the Clintons' lawyers on Monday that was also obtained by the New York Times. In that letter, Mr. Comer also rejected the demand from Mr. Clinton that the scope of the interview be limited to matters related to Mr. Epstein. Mr. Comer said that the former president, quote, likely has an artificially narrow definition in mind of what matters would be related to the Epstein investigation. Mr. Comer said he had concerns that Mr. Clinton would refuse to answer questions about his, quote, personal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, ways in which they sought to curry favor with powerful individuals, and alleged efforts to utilize his power and influence after his presidency to kill negative news stories about Jeffrey Epstein, end quote. In response to Mr. Comer's letter, the Clintons on Monday evening agreed to all of Mr. Comer's demands, removing any time limit on the deposition of Mr. Clinton or on the range of topics that Republicans could ask him about. The only point of negotiation that Mr. Comer had previously been amenable to was conducting the interviews in New York, where the Clintons live and work. Okay, so what we have here is a textbook example of how to handle deep state swamp creatures. If you think of James Comer, can you picture him? Can you picture his face? Can you picture his demeanor? Can you picture a viral video of him? Many of us probably can't, because James Comer is not what you would describe as a bombastic, click-thirsty individual. He is just doggedly doing his job. As a member of the U.S. Congress, part of his job is to legislate. The other part of his job is the duty of oversight. He is conducting his duty of oversight, and he's not letting politicians politician him. He says, we subpoenaed you because you have information that's pertinent to this investigation. You refused that subpoena, which is against the law, so we're going to hold you accountable for that. And then, when he won that point against the Clintons, of all people, the Clintons, being the Clintons, tried to slime their way into a situation that was more favorable to them by putting all these conditions on the deposition. And Comer said, nah, we're not doing that. We're not doing it. Nope. And the Clintons ultimately caved. Listen, last week when we discussed why Hillary Clinton, if she didn't show up, should be held in contempt of Congress and should go to jail, because that's what the Democrats did to Republicans. When Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon refused subpoenas from the January 6th Select Committee, what happened to them? They went to trial, they were convicted, and they were sentenced to federal prison. They served time in federal penitentiary because they refused a subpoena from the United States Congress. Why should Hillary Clinton receive treatment any different than Republicans? She shouldn't, of course. We don't have two different standards in the law, one for Republicans and one for Democrats. If a Democrat breaks the law, he or she should be held accountable to that. And this is where we discussed this last week, where oftentimes Republicans are really squishy about holding Democrats accountable for breaking the law, because Republicans fear this false premise. It's based, you know, the theme of the show, small assumptions allow big lie. Well, the small assumption that Republicans mistakenly often make is that when Republicans are in power, we shouldn't prosecute Democrats because it appears people's perception of that might be that Republicans are targeting their political enemies. And that's not a good look because we want to take the high road. Or if Republicans do prosecute Democrats who broke the law, that will open the door to Democrats prosecuting Republicans when Democrats are back in power. This is a completely false premise. This small assumption allows the big lie that it's a bad thing for Republicans to prosecute Democrats who actually broke the law. But the crucial element to this is Democrats who broke the law. Because that's the thing, when Democrats prosecute Republicans, it's usually based on a fake allegation, a false accusation. But when Republicans prosecute Democrats, it's because Democrats broke the law. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton broke the law. They should be held accountable for it. And James Comer is teaching the entire country. I've never seen a politician do this the way that James Comer is doing it. He is teaching the right how to actually pursue justice. I hope we get a readout. I know we won't have it on video, and I wish that we had it on video because the American people, we all deserve to be able to watch Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton answer questions. But I hope we at least get a readout. By the way, Ghislaine Maxwell is also scheduled to testify before Congress. Her date for testimony is February 9th. That's this coming Monday, so a little bit less than a week from today, which originally seemed quite interesting, but her attorneys have recently said that she will plead the fifth whenever she is asked a question. So it may not be as interesting of testimony as we were originally hoping it would be. Okay, all that being said, obviously the reason that the Clintons are going to be testifying in front of the House Oversight Committee is so that the Oversight Committee can try to pick their brains and gain additional knowledge and information about Jeffrey Epstein, how he made his money, if and how he was associated with not only rich and powerful people, influential people, politicians, but governments themselves, maybe even intel agencies. And who would be in a better position to know that than the former president of the United States, Bill Clinton, who was also seemingly a personal friend of Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, Epstein visited him in the White House when Bill was in office 17 times, and then Bill Clinton rode on Epstein's private jet dozens of times. The point of all of this is that there's still a lot of questions that are unanswered about Jeffrey Epstein. Our movement is gaining ground. People around us are waking up. The mainstream media leftist narrative is cracking. At BlazeTV, we've built a home for some of the strongest, smartest voices in conservative media. When you subscribe to BlazeTV, you're not just watching content, you're supporting a movement. You're backing creators who think for themselves. It's everything that the networks won't show you, delivered on your terms, on any device, anytime. And it starts at just $8 a month. BlazeTV.com/Liz, promo code Liz.